Dark and delusional, dark and delusional, dark and delusional, dark and delusional.
I
It's
want to be
not good.
anonymous.
Dark and delusional. Today we have a guest. We have two guests. One's more of an observer in the background, making sure my audio works because I'm a loser and can't figure it out. And the other guy is, I'll let him introduce himself because I don't know what he wants to go by. He's a
I'm
man
just
of mystery.
some rando right now. I mean, for right now, I can just be anonymous podcast guest number 3.
Dude, that's way too much
It's
to
a sick-
fucking say. Let's
I
keep
think
it
it's a sick name, but
under
whatever.
under two syllables. Well, I'll call you Anon. I'll call you Anon. Oh yeah, that's lame.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's very what's that one website? 4chan-y.
That is
Yeah.
very for Channy.
I don't know. I just didn't feel like being creative and coming up with something. So well, the name will fall into
Well,
place.
I
after
have
we
a
do
name
this
for
couple
you.
times.
It's gonna be 2032 because that's the year you're running for president.
God help us all.
Well, I got my guest here, 2032 and Mazda, and we are gonna talk about
It's still a lot of syllables, but
Huh.
number 3. You can call me number 3 for right
number
now.
3.
And
Number
then
3.
We'll figure out a name later.
This guy's gonna talk about some shit, and I don't really know what he's gonna talk about. So here we go.
Yeah, so I mean, initially when you told me you wanted to do this podcast and it was going to be called Dark and Delusional, I was like, I don't know what the hell he wants to talk about. There's probably a lot of different things that could fit into that category. I had a couple initial ideas. I like history and stuff, and while I was trying to look at some different topics to talk about, I randomly kind of stumbled on this crazy story, in my opinion, which is, well, I don't want to give too much away, so I'll just leave it at that, and then we'll just kind of play out the story, and then we could talk about whatever we want to after that. It's kind of what I'm thinking.
I'm gonna hear this story. I'm gonna take a sip of this beer, and let's hear the story.
All right, here we go. So, it all starts with Francis Drake. Now, Francis Drake is from the 1500s, so we got to go way back to Shakespeare times.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I just looked it up on Google here. His lifespan was 1540 to 1596.
I trust Google. We all should trust Google.
I trust Google too. All right, we're trusting Google on this one.
So kind of around the same time as Shakespeare, they were alive around at the same time. And this dude, Francis Drake, he's... Well, first of all, when I was doing my little Wikipedia to other article research, because that's how you do research in the real world.
I just
found
use
out that
AI.
This guy was kind of a dick back in
He
the
is a
day.
dick.
Yeah, he actually started out as as a sailor who participated in creating the English slave trade. So that was his origin, is being on ships participating in the slave trade. So we'll just leave that. I'll just leave that with the whoever ends up listening to this podcast. We'll leave that there.
I think it's pretty poor for a
geez.
job. That's pretty poor for a job resume.
Yeah, so that's how he starts it out. But eventually, he works himself up. He makes the right connections, I guess, to the right people in England. And the story goes that discreetly, he becomes a privateer for Queen Elizabeth I. Privateers are just pirates that are supported by, a monarch or a state or whoever back in the day, right? And he was a part of the second expedition to circumnavigate the globe. Anyone that's listening that doesn't believe in the globe Earth, well, get over it. That's the story. Suck it up. You can do your flat Earth version another time.
Well, before you continue, I just wanted to. I mean, even if the world was flat, couldn't you circumnavigate it around the edge of the circle?
I guess it just depends on what your perspective on that is. But either way, he's in history, in the history books, he's the second guy to circumnavigate the globe. So basically, long story short, this dude becomes a privateer, and his whole thing, discreetly, is that he's going to go sail from England all the way around the tip of South America, up the west side of both South and North America, pillaging whatever sort of Spanish ports along the way that he can, get his hands on. And so he does that, goes all the way up into like modern day California, sails from there across the Pacific Ocean through Southeast Asia, then goes around Africa all the way back to England to complete his loop, right?
When I did a quick read up on this guy, I mean, I just wanted to reiterate, he seemed like pretty brutal. Like, this guy killed a lot of people. He's recorded as being the first European to kill natives in southern Patagonia.
Oh yeah, he set all sorts of different records for things that are really, really dark. I thought this would be perfect topic for this podcast. It fits right in.
It really does.
One of the articles I was reading was like, it kind of blamed this dude for why the English and the French, went on to fight each other for another like several hundred years. So it's kind of interesting. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a history expert. You're listening to some random people on a podcast, so get over it, audience. I really liked how you ended the last the podcast with Mazda here. You said don't subscribe, we don't care. Perfect. I think you have to disrespect your audience in order to gain a following. I think that's how you do it.
It's just like my dog. The more I neglect them, the more they love me and yearn for my attention.
That's right. I think that's how it works. So just gotta ignore the audience and their needs.
For the record, all the episodes I'd like that. You just haven't listened to the other ones yet.
Yeah, I haven't had the chance to listen to the 3-hour one that you had to split up. But anyway. So this Francis Drake guy, in a way, he's a very prominent, important member of history, but he's also kind of a terrible human being at the same time. But the main point is basically what he did, during his time. So on this voyage that he went on, there's another guy named Francis.
Are we talking about the circumnavigation voyage?
Yes.
Okay.
So
this took place between 1577 and 1580. This voyage.
Yes. So on this voyage, there's another Francis Fletcher, that's there, and he is a priest in the Church of England, and he is there taking notes the entire time of this, recording logs of the voyage. And a lot of what he used was, or what he created in his process of, keeping his diary, keeping a log, is what is used to, talk about this voyage that they went on.
So this was a physical. These records were like preserved enough to read. Then, like,
yeah,
this is like
they're still sitting over in England or something like that, and to this day in like a box that nobody gets to look at, probably. I'm sure people that are important enough get to look at. But anyway, so that's the basis for a lot of the documents, and apparently he did a pretty good job because like I said, most of his stuff is what is used as the official record of the events that took place. Anyway, one of the things that he recorded in his records was when Francis Drake, who was the head of the expedition, this pirate, this privateer expedition, basically claimed land in California for Queen Elizabeth and England in general, right? This is when they actually stopped in what is modern day California. There's even like a bay named after Drake because of where they think that he landed.
What's it called? Murder Bay?
No, it's very, very generic. It's like Drake. I don't know. What is it?
This is why
we need Drake's Bay. It's very, very specific. Drake's Bay. So, anyway, during this trip, when they stopped in California, Francis Fletcher, the priest that was taking these records, said that they put up a monument. And so this monument, was just a brass plate that they put up on a post. And it said, blah, 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 we're here. Everyone needs to know that this land is claimed in the name of Queen Elizabeth, and it has the date of their arrival, and supposedly they managed to hammer in, or whatever, a picture of Queen Elizabeth from one of their coins that they took along with them. So this brass plate on a monument sitting in this random bay in California where no other English person had ever been, was supposed to be the claim. So, naturally, that item would be pretty amazing to find. So it was kind of like a part of speculation. It's like, oh well, I wonder if this is in it. Certain circles of historians were kind of speculating as to, okay, is this the right spot, or maybe we'll find it someday, that type of thing. Jump forward. We got to go forward like 400 years. All right. In 1933, there is a chauffeur. Okay. Now this guy is just kicking rocks or whatever. This chauffeur is waiting for some, probably rich dude that is hunting quail to get back from his hunting trip. This chauffeur stumbles upon a brass plate. Now, apparently, they don't really say why, but he either couldn't interpret it or maybe not, didn't know how to read it or whatever, even though it's kind of in some weird English. Didn't think much of it. He keeps it for like a couple weeks and literally throws it out the window.
What do you mean he
throws it out the window of his car? Okay?
No, what?
I swear that is official.
He kept it for that long, and he was just riding in his car. He was just looking at it, yes. Tossed it like a cigarette out the fucking window. Oh, okay.
So for whatever reason in this guy's head, maybe he thought it was junk or whatever, he threw it out the window. And it sat there on the ground off of this road for another 3 years until 1936, when another guy that was hunting, apparently a pheasant hunter, he had a flat tire. He stopped to fix his flat tire, finds the plate, okay, that was thrown out of a car window, finds the plate, and takes it to his friend who is at UC Berkeley, way over in California there. His friend, who's a student at the university, recommends that he takes it to this well-known historian on the West Coast who apparently did a lot of work translating documents and stuff, trying to help build this historical record of, Western history, basically, or Western, U.S. history at that time he would probably be, looking at, right? So this guy, his name is Herbert Eugene Bolton. At first, he's really skeptical. He's like, hey, is this, because obviously someone hands you a random thing that's exactly what you've been looking for 20 years, you're going to be a little skeptical. So he's a little skeptical. Then he talks to some people, and he gets together with some other historians and whatnot. And he's like, you know what, this might be a real deal. So he gets like 17 or so people together, and they pool a bunch of money, and he pays this guy that found it $3,500 for it. So $3,500, which in today's money is like $50,000, apparently.
Oh,
so
wow.
He pays this guy the equivalent of $50,000 for it, and then he starts going on the press tour saying, hey, we found this thing. It's a huge deal. This might be the most remarkable discovery of, naval history or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Goes on the thing and gets support from the local university there. So this brass plate goes all over the world, to different museums, does, tours and stuff like that. It
was promoted to be that big of a deal. Like they were like parading it around like a mummy.
That's how it goes anyway. Apparently, even someone even made a copy of it and gave it as a gift to Queen Elizabeth II over in England there as a present. So for around 40 years, all of this is happening. This is a part of the historical record, right? But then finally, some people get together, and the concerns get louder and louder. It turns out the whole plate was actually a hoax. And so...
What? Okay, was it like fake from the beginning? Like,
it was fake from the beginning in the most ridiculous and insane way possible, okay? Like, so they find out 40 years after the initial, discovery that,
So like in the 70s, this would be like the 70s, right?
Yeah, I mean,
right.
So somebody reiterated the fact that the way they mention the Queen's name is all wrong. They found out that like the way it was made was with tools that would not have been used at the time period in question. Not
Oh
to mention
no.
some other suspicious markings we'll get to, in a minute here. But the whole thing's been a fake for 40 years, and this guy has staked his entire reputation and the reputation of like some other universities and museums on top of this fact. But and so nobody even knew for a long time, who would have done this insane, stupid fake. And it was another, I don't know how much later it was, but, a few years after that, apparently, someone did a deep dive and tried to figure it out. And it wasn't until they looked into some records of, these historians that were a part of this group that the picture became clear, basically, right? Someone did a deep dive and found out that this Herbert Eugene Bolton was actually a part of this like social club for historians to get together and drink. Okay, I swear this is it's gonna get really weird here in a second. So this group, okay, is called E. Clampus Vitus. Now, it sounds like it's Latin. It doesn't mean it means absolutely nothing at all. It's a completely made-up name, and it's just a group of guys that, are historians. They get together and they drink and they talk about like the history of the West, basically. This guy was a part of this group, and people from that group made this hoax plate basically to screw with them. So they made a fake plate in order to pull a prank on him. And as the story goes, it basically was it just got way out of hand, and the guy started doing his press tour before they could even tell him that, hey, it's not real. So
oh no.
This absolute forgery prank ended up being entered into the historical record because some drunk academics got together and made it happen, which is absolutely, I mean, the more you look into it, the crazier and crazier it gets. Like, apparently, to mess with this guy, they, and maybe to give him a little hint, they started posting they made some like internal documents in their social club saying, hey, if we were gonna fake a plate, this is what we would do. But yeah, it's just, in retrospect too, it's like, it was kind of obvious of how fake it was. The cherry on the whole cake to me is that when they made this plate, the guy that made the plate stamped his initials up above Francis Drake's name. So they put his initials were like CG or something like that. They interpreted that as like Captain General or whatever, which apparently like wasn't even really a term for Francis Drake. But more importantly than that, on this plate that, mind you, has gone around the world, they actually had painted in fluorescent paint ECV, which is the initials of their social club, in fluorescent paint all over the surface.
Jesus.
What?
So they're trolling?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
oh my gosh.
Like I said, initially it was supposed to be, because this Bolton guy, he had been talking about it to, his students or whatever for years, apparently, saying, hey, if any of you students ever find this, it's really important. You should make sure you bring it to me or whatever. So
okay.
And so this guy, and there's some ambiguity as to whether or not he believed it was real. I personally believe that he believed it was real, especially because his family seemed to totally believe it was real as well.
He was a historian, right?
Well, that's what I'm saying. He staked his entire reputation on this fake object.
He studied history his whole life, and he looked at this thing and didn't realize it was fake. You said there was fluorescent paint on it.
Well, he didn't know that. It wasn't until, like I said, like 40 years later that the information ended up coming out, So.
Well, I mean, I'm just picturing fluorescent paint in my head like something visible, like.
No,
like
I think it'd be like a black light sort of situation.
Okay,
yeah, but that would be like,
yeah.
Wouldn't that normally be done on a artifact? I mean, I guess we're talking about back then, but
not a ECV.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
talk about like the original drunk history here.
No, 100%. I mean, if you look up, first of all, this group still exists to this day, and apparently there's been several iterations of this group too, which is also that's a whole nother thing. I mean, the first like version of the organization dates back to like the Gold Rush or something.
Okay.
It's basically a social club for, people that couldn't make it into be a Freemason or whatever. but
Interesting.
But if you go to their website, which is just absolutely, it looks like a website straight out of, like the early 2000s, with the flashing, images that don't go anywhere and links that don't really do anything. Let me just read their creed here. It says, the Clampers' Creed, 'cause that's what they call themselves. As I pass through life, may I always be humble. May I never take myself seriously. May I always appreciate a little of the ridiculous. May I always be a two-fisted clamper. When the bottle passes my way, and if I imbibe, I can't hold it like a man, then I will always be able to pass it on to the next brother. May I never forget the stout-hearted men who settled a great western wilderness and the heritage we have today. May I never fail to appreciate a bit of western lore. That is their creed.
Oh gosh.
So a bunch of drunk dudes made this fake thing, which maybe they had more malice, for this Bolton guy, but like it was entered into the historical record and wasn't corrected for like 40 years. It was just believed that this was a real artifact of this, second circumnavigation of the globe back, 400 years into the past. And that is the story. Yeah.
That's the first thing that comes to my head is you think he made his $50,000 back to reading the fake plane across the globe?
Finding out, like, if you're the family of the guy that got the $50,000 or whatever, we're like, yeah, Grandpa did good. Like,
whoa, here's a question: did he die before he knew it was fake?
I think he did actually. I don't know that for sure, but like, well. Something I was reading said like that the 40 years later when they finally released this information that it was definitely a fake. Apparently his like grandson, who was like 80 already at the time, was like super bitter about it and saying, "I can't believe you're doing this to my grandfather's legacy." Or
Oh, he definitely was dead before. He definitely was dead if that's the case.
Yeah, for sure. So.
Oh wow. Wow. Oh,
dude, I'm reading the
if I read
meeting
it
minutes.
Right. What was that?
I'm reading the meeting minutes of
E. Clampus Victus.
Yeah.
They post their meeting minutes?
Dude, you gotta check out this website. That's what you gotta hear. I'll put the website in the chat here. It is.
But it's like a Californian corporation founded at 4005 BC.
Yeah. Dude, if you look up the Wikipedia on the group, it says like they're like I said, that first incarnation. It says that the first members claimed that the organization was brought from the Qing dynasty in China to the United States in 1845.
Oh my gosh!
In what is now anyway West Union, West Virginia. And was given a commission from the Emperor of China to extend the work and influence of the ancient and honorable order of E. Clampus Victus. So again, it's just like this completely made up nonsense, and apparently a lot of historians on the west side of the United States are all in on this group. And it
seems fun to be a part of, to be honest.
Yeah, but I wonder if I don't know, I'm kind of picturing Graham Hancock maybe part of it, and maybe that was this is his ploy the whole time.
Dude, so the closest chapter is in Idaho.
I'm surprised that they even have that.
Yeah,
it's a wild. Like the more you look into those guys, it's like looking into Francis Drake. He's like, I can't believe what I'm reading right now. Their whole thing is like making plaques and historical sites for like super weird, like. Dude, moments in history too.
It says right here, click here to see over 1,685 ECP plaques.
Right. So, from the dark history of Francis Drake and the delusions of, of a group of drunk historians, we have this this story of Francis Drake's brass plate, and yeah, so that's what I got.
That is
Yeah.
great.
Well, it just goes to show you too. It's like even if it's in the history books and in the historical record, like you still kind of have to treat everything with a take everything with a grain of salt.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Our information of him actually putting something on the California shore comes from that like priest diary or whatever.
Francis, yeah. So
Yeah,
this
the
Francis
other
Fletcher
Francis.
guy.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. No, that guy like it was that was a no kind of a no nonsense voyage, and I mean the dude. One of the stories I found was like when. So basically, Francis Drake was kind of a dick, and he killed this like guy that was on the voyage because they were like competing for leadership, basically. And no, seriously, straight up. And so this Francis Fletcher, he preaches a sermon after Drake, killed that dude. And it's like, you know what? It was super messed up that Drake killed that guy, and that is why God is punishing us for everything that's going wrong on this trip. And so naturally, if someone criticizes you, like, he criticized Francis Drake, Drake had him chained up to a hatch cover on the surface of the boat for a little while until he cooled off, apparently. Because that's the kind of guy he was. So.
Oh man, that's brutal.
Oh yeah,
brutal.
like yeah. No,
Everything
seriously.
about this guy seems like a fucking dick. He's a fucking dick.
Yeah, at least at least only one person's reputation was ruined when the clampers got to making that fake plate. He didn't ruin a couple civilizations and start wars and participate in slave trade. And
I don't even like his whole career is off killing and plundering, pretty much.
yeah, he was one of the most successful privateers in history, basically.
Yeah, he was
you
really
look up a list of the most successful. I mean, this Francis Drake, he retired, in his home country, a very wealthy man who was a part of government for like, I don't even know.
He participated in government after all that.
Oh
shit?
oh yeah, he was a member for like 3 different constituencies over his tenure in government in parliament. So.
Oh my
like that.
god.
Yeah.
Well, the only other thing I really read about the dude is he like crushed the Spanish Armada.
Yeah, he ended up being a military leader too, somewhere along the line. So yeah, he was a big part of that as well.
Yeah,
he got a knighthood after all of that stuff too.
Oh man, they just had
Yeah.
different standards back then, I guess.
It was some wild times,
Yeah.
New World Rush to get colonies and whatnot. So
this group here, this
Eclampus.
yeah,
Vitus.
the Eclampus Vitus, they have so many fake plaques around the United States. It's wild.
Mhm.
Do you
There's
know what
so
the-
many.
You know what they call like the members of the group?
What are they called?
Noble Grand Humbugs.
Noble
Yeah.
Grand Humbugs.
That
The
is what they call
Whoa.
themselves.
The
And I guess
chairman-
the leader is the Sublime Noble Grand Humbug.
Dude, I want to find a picture of the current leader here.
And the chairman is called the Mo of the Salt of the Scum of the Earth model.
No way.
I didn't even know that. That's fantastic.
You guys want to
Yeah.
go to the Grand Council? It's held the last weekend in May.
They seem like they'd be pretty fun guys to hang out with.
They
not
do,
gonna lie.
man.
I mean, they have they're having a good time. I
Yeah.
mean, so what if they're corrupting the historical record through their offhanded pranks? It's fine. They're having fun.
I think it was a great prank. I think they did a great job.
That's a crazy.
I mean,
part.
what would you do, dude? You're like seeing a guy make his career, and everyone's so happy. Everyone's like, "We found it."
Well,
We
they
found
did
them.
They did kind of try to tell him that it was fake. I mean, they released like so the whole one of the big things with this group is they were pranking each other back in the day apparently. Like it was not
so
uncommon.
it was a back and forth pranking situation.
Well, allegedly, yeah. After he started his press tour or whatever, they did like release some. They made like a internal like booklet or something, that said if we were gonna fake this is how we something like that. They gave him some hints, but either he thought they were just making fun of him, or he refused to acknowledge it. I don't know which one, but I mean, this guy kept it up apparently. So, and so did everyone else that participated. So, I think there was like at least two, like 3 or 4 guys that were in on this, conspiracy to prank.
Well, you know what? In a funny way, they made history for themselves anyways. They were the first the first modern day major hoax of a historical artifact. It seems like to
probably
be.
not the first.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's been plenty, but
Yeah, but
certainly
is there
that
one
in
is
modern
there
times, like more modern times?
Yeah, I mean more modern times. I mean we've been making knockoffs since we could draw.
Yeah, there's always like a
What gets me is it like doesn't even sound like it was a good fake. Like
it really wasn't too. That's kind of the funny thing. Like like I said, even right away when it was first made, people were questioning the writing on it because for example, the way they refer to the Queen of England is just like not how they would have like talked about her or whatever. So on the plate it says Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth of England, but apparently that's just like not how they would have written it in the 1500s at all. So there's already people right off the bat that were like, that doesn't seem right,
But I
But
wonder
it still was in museums all over the place, and
I wonder what England's reaction to this plate was like when it showed up in England on the Grand Tour. And they saw it. I wonder if they were like overjoyed, or they all looked at it like stupid American. That's
Well, it
obviously
was
not the
kinda-
real
Yeah.
thing.
I mean, maybe, but it is well, first of all, the plate probably is real, and maybe it's still out there somewhere in California. But like, it's also like a pretty big moment in history too, because like, I mean, at that point in history, like the Spanish just had a complete control over anything that happened in the Pacific, pretty much. Well, except for maybe the Portuguese, they probably had some say on things, but like England was not in the game basically at that point,
Not until Sir Francis Drake came along.
Absolutely. Well, and also this claim that Francis Drake made apparently was part of the justification in why like the US, needed to also finish Manifest Destiny, because we had, claimed both sides of the English had claimed both sides, and by extension America had claimed both sides of the continent or whatever. So like it wasn't a small moment in history. I mean, the repercussions from his little, pillaging party going around the world caused a lot of ripples in history. So
It's kind of amazing he even survived that 3-year voyage, because from what I was reading, like he took like his ship and like 4 other ships with them, and like all the ships and like most of the crew died along the way.
oh yeah,
And his ship, I think it was called like the Pelican or something.
Yeah.
I don't, yeah, whatever. That ship, fucking, he made it all the way. And from what I understand too, is they were in California for an extended period of time. They stopped there to like rebuild and resupply the ship before sailing home.
yeah. They had a lot of issues. It definitely was like a real rough trip. Then he retired with like the modern equivalent of $100 million or whatever. Like crazy wealthy dude.
He did well.
Yeah, he did well. I mean, by some people's standards. But yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
I still can't get over like that's pretty crazy. I wonder. I would imagine if a plate still exists, it would be like under the sand and possibly the water.
Yeah,
By
no. I
now.
mean, it's one of those things that actual historical record we just don't know. Apparently, like it very well could be out there. I mean, the priest guy did put it in his log.
Were
so-
there other settlers in California at the time, or was it just Native Americans?
Well, I know somewhere on the west coast of North America there already was some Spanish settlements, but I don't know like how far up the coast they went.
Because I
I'm not
honestly,
sure.
I'm wondering if like Drake just left and the Indians came in and just took the plaque.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't they? I mean, they'd probably get rid of it or destroy it or something at the very least. I don't see them holding on to it. It kind of would seem disrespectful that some dude just posted up this square of some lady.
You know, that we don't know. I have no idea what it would have. I mean, it's very likely that like if someone found it, you know, they could have just like reused it or you know threw it away or you know, it's a small little plaque, right? It's not like he made a giant stone monument, you know. So it could still be out there. You know, it just so happens that this one that was given that Herbert Eugene Bolton bought was not real. Just the fluorescent paint really got me though. I was like, "Are you absolutely kidding me?" Like that part really got me.
Well, that's crazy. I didn't even know we could do that in 1930 or whatever. I didn't realize we already had.
Well, that was the thing. It's like it was legit, just like modern. You know, well for that time, you know. It was 1930s brass that someone had hammered in some stuff and threw it out there, and that's where I think it is a little the skepticism on whether or not Bolton thought it was real is kind of interesting because he gave it to some guy. I think it was at like a library or museum or whatever that validated that it was a real, you know, genuine article on or brass, you know, plate from the period, but. I don't know what tests he would have done, because those guys like 40 years later is like no, not at all. So,
that's what I'm saying. Maybe he knew it. Maybe that dude knew it was fake the whole time.
I don't know.
Wouldn't that be interesting? He had to make that $50K back.
Yeah, it would be kind of crazy if he actually knew that it wasn't real and just went with it. I mean, that would I don't know. It's hard to believe though, because like the guy apparently did actually participate in like you know doing a whole bunch of very important translations or something. So of like Spanish documents and whatever.
The real question is, what artifact are we gonna fake to really fool the world for the next 40 years?
What artifacts are already fake? I mean, it makes you think
no
about
shit, man.
Stuff that's actually sitting in these, you know, in museums and stuff of which ones are actually you know, real.
Like
especially stuff like metal, it's hard to date it, you know. So
yeah.
it's kind of hard to know.
Even if it's dated, I mean, who's to say people just aren't saying it is dated without the object actually being dated? You know.
Yeah.
I think it would be really easy to fake a mummy, personally. I really think that wouldn't be that hard. I mean, who's gonna crack open a fucking mummy wrapped in linen to check if it's a corpse or not?
Well, yeah, but if anyone ever did, though, because it's like organic material, they would, you know, they'd know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, metal and rock, you know, stuff like that is hard to date. You know, they have to just kind of use context and.
Well, isn't that crazy?
In the area.
That just kind of throws off our dating for the entire Earth because most of it is geological dating.
Yeah, they can get pretty clever with some things, and you know sometimes they can like there's different ways to do dating. Like in the Arctic, you know, they do those ice cores where they can, you know.
The ice cores are cool. That shit's really cool. I've seen videos of that. I think that's probably the most accurate way we have of dating. I mean, I guess carbon dating too, but the ice core is like it's a preservative of time. It doesn't really
that stuff is pretty cool.
It doesn't get any better than that if you're looking to date something.
Yeah. But yeah, it's hopefully it's not more hoaxes, but you know, we learn stuff all the time about what's real and not real. I mean, while I was, you know, reading about this, I thought about all the stuff that we were told in, like, you know, elementary school that was just absolutely wrong in every single way. You know, like I remember being told that Henry Ford invented the automobile. That's like 100% fake. It's not true in any way.
No,
not even close.
This is not. There was already cars going on in England before that was even happening.
And some things are just like. We believe him because we have no other evidence. Like Columbus being the first to land in America, like they didn't know for a while.
That's a different episode, man. There's a lot of weird delusions about Christopher Columbus, man. And the more research you do on that dude, it's crazy. I think we have a more accurate account of Sir Francis Drake's life than we do of Columbus's life. Because
probably. All we really have of Columbus is those letters that he sent, pretty much. I mean,
Yeah,
there's not.
no.
I don't know if I don't know if any of the ship logs and stuff survived. Maybe maybe they did, but most of what we know is just like, because he didn't even like. I don't think Columbus, like unlike Drake, Columbus didn't really, live in the lap of luxury for the rest of his life. I mean, he was around, he was important, but he didn't end up getting all of his financial goals met. I don't think.
I think the Vikings were in the Americas, and we just haven't found a record of them.
Well, they have more. I forgot what the evidence was, but like it more accepted in the historical record now that the Vikings for sure were like the first to come to the New World.
They had to have been
in terms of Europeans.
They have copper in some of their swords and axes and whatever that like comes from the Upper Peninsula, because I guess that the copper that comes from the Upper Peninsula has a certain signature or whatever. They can tell it came from like the Keweenaw Peninsula. So obviously they had to, go to the Keweenaw Peninsula to get the copper for their weapons and sail back.
Or traded for it, I mean, I don't think they did a whole lot of trading, but you never know.
If they traded for it, who was up there? The French, maybe? Would the French have been up in that time?
No, it just would have been the native, whatever the native groups were.
Yeah, I guess it could go. I guess they could have touched the shore and just traded from there,
Or they stole it too. That's also a possibility.
Probably likely for Vikings.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of their deal, kind of their jam. So
Mazda, do you have anything you want to add?
Not really. I found that really interesting. Actually,
I
me too.
I was, like I did not think I was gonna make this into a whole project, but like it was it's such a crazy story, and I barely just touched the surface too. There's so many like funny little details that are thrown in here as to like why these guys did what they did, and it's really interesting.
Well, I'm sure because like it's crazy that it's still ongoing. That's surprising.
Yeah, I mean it's definitely like accepted that it's a fake at this point, but it took till 2003 I think for the like finally someone to say, well, these guys made the hoax and here's the proof type of thing. Like it took a long time for it to come out. So it was like the 1970s or whatever that they did the testing and proved it was a fake, but it wasn't until 2002 or 3 or something like that when someone did the research to say, okay, it was, this guy and this guy that made the plate. So it took a long time, So
I wonder if they've done anything else since in there. I mean, they're obviously making fake plaques, but I wonder if they fooled anybody as good as that.
Well, I don't know if they're making fake plaques. They make plaques for weird stuff, though.
I don't know.
Like,
the shit. I read through a couple of them on the website while we were sitting here, and they could go either way with me. They sound like if they're real, they're just absurd.
Sound like a bunch of troublemakers to me.
If they're fake, then they're good fakes because they're entertaining. They nice.
They made a plaque for this train or something that they pulled out of a lake that like no one really cared about, but they made a plaque anyway for it. Kind of just stuff like that. They just just a goofy group having a good time. When they're not, like I said, corrupting records, but.
Hey, you know what?
It's just a prank, bro.
They released an internal memo saying that if this is how they would do it, they gave the world a heads up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm paraphrasing. It was something like that. They tried to it was an internal memo, and I don't know. They may have actually published it. I don't know if it got.
Oh, that would be wild if it got published and this shit still blew up like that. I mean, that's just people being stupid, right?
Yeah, it's crazy though. But yeah, we got to be careful with our historical record. We gotta.
I don't trust any historical record, dude. I mean a little bit, but like I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't justify it.
I mean, I'm a big history guy. I think history is really important. But yeah, you really gotta have multiple sources for some things.
Like multiple plaques.
Maybe yeah.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, that's the story of Francis Drake and his brass fake plate.
I like it. So. I'm just like my final thoughts on that are just like, I can't believe that the practical prank went like 40 years, even longer than that.
Well, I think at a certain point it stopped being a prank, but it
It
just
really,
became...
it really did. It just became this thing. And like, what if if you're that organization, you like sitting there chuckling in the background because everybody knows it's fucking fake because they made it.
Seriously.
They're
Oh.
watching this world tour fucking go around, and they're fucking drinking beer and reading the paper and laughing off their ass. I guarantee it, dude.
I don't remember it, but there was some guy representing the organization at like the thing in 1970 where they discovered that it was a fake, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, sorry." I think it was the 1970 event, but whatever. The guy was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, we don't have more records of our minutes back then. We may not have been able. The guys may not have been able to even take them at the time, or something like that." Kind of hinting that they were probably trashed. It's just they like I said, they have a good time.
Well, shout out, and if anyone from what are they called again? The C something.
E Clampus Vitus.
E Clampus Vitus. If anybody listening to this podcast is from E Clampus Vitus, please come on the podcast because I think it'd be a great show. And you can drink as much as you want. I'll drink with you. I'll go beer for beer. It'll be great.
There you go.
Well, I think that's about it. But I definitely think I mean, super interesting. I love how like we described like one of the most horrible figures in history, and then the story ended up being about a fake plaque.
Yeah. The dark and the delusional.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Well, as always, don't subscribe. Yeah. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, people.